Lebanon investigators got 4 days to find blast culprits after the explosion last Tuesday. The governor of the U.S. state of New York has declared a state of emergency in the wake of tropical storm Isaias. Sri Lankans attended to polls on Wednesday to elect a new parliament after being postponed twice due to coronavirus pandemic. From the headquarters of FtS English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmero. Lebanon investigators got 4 days to find blast culprits after the explosion last Tuesday. Rescue operations continue as members of the Lebanese Red Cross, Army soldiers and volunteers search for people listed missing under the rubble of areas near the port. Officials said the death toll from the explosion, killing at least 157 people and injuring 5,000 more, was expected to rise. Investigators in Lebanon proving the deadly blast that ripped across Beirut was focusing on possible negligence in a storage of tons of highly explosive fertilizers in a waterfront warehouse, while the government ordered the house arrest of several port officials. Lebanon's cabinet declared a 2-week state of emergency in the capital and 100 control of security in the city of the military. Lebanese authorities ordered house arrest for a number of port officials on Wednesday, pending an investigation into the blast that occurred on Beirut on Tuesday.
The military authority requested a compulsory house arrest on those who worked in management of the storage of the ammonium nitrate, which amounted to 2,750 tons, those who worked on the guarding and safeguarding the files from June 2014 to August 4, 2020. Securing a certain amount of wheat after the damage of the warehouse in the fire, we request the Ministry of Public Works and Transportation to do what is needed to secure the operations of import and export through the port, Bar Beirut port, like Tripoli or Saida.
France's President Emmanuel Macron visits Lebanon Beirut port after deadly blast. French President visited Beirut for 2 days after monster blasts sowed unforgettable destruction in Beirut and brought Paris' Middle East protege to its knees. The provisional death toll stood at 157, but with dozens of missing and 5,000 wounded. The number of victims was expected to rise as rescue workers continue to come through the rubble. Meanwhile, nations across the globe have offered their support to the Lebanese people after the 2 huge blasts over the killed 100 people. Countries such as Russia, Kuwait, the Arab Emirates, France, and organizations such as the World Health Organization have already sent medical and security workers and aid equipment to help people affected in the Beirut explosion. The United Nations Secretary General has extended condolences to the Lebanese government and people while reaffirming the organization's support for recovery efforts.
The General expressed his deepest condolences to the families of the victims, as well as to the people and government of Lebanon following the horrific explosions in Beirut. He wishes a speedy recovery to the injured, including several United Nations personnel working in Lebanon. The United Nations remains committed to supporting Lebanon at this difficult time and is actively assisting in the response to this incident.
On Wednesday, the Iranian Red Crescent Society loaded a plane with a humanitarian aid for the Lebanese people. The plane is carrying much-needed medical supplies, a medical team, and a field hospital to help tackle the emergency sparked by the blast that occurred in Beirut on Tuesday afternoon. The NGO announced that this was the first of a series of humanitarian achievements to descend to the Lebanon.
In regards to what happened yesterday in Beirut, the first shipment of Iranian aid weighing more than 95 tons, including medical items, medical equipment, food, a field hospital, and a medical team of 30 people, will be sent to Beirut.
A large fire broke out at a public market in the United Arab Emirates city of Amman this Wednesday. Local residents reported seeing a cloud of thick and black smoke from the fire that broke out at 7:30 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, civil defense teams rushed at the site in order to control the blaze. Authorities have not reported any injuries so far. According to reports, a nearby hospital was evacuated as a precautionary measure. The cause of the fire remains unknown. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has announced the reimposition of lockdown restrictions in the city of Aberdeen, following reports of new cases of COVID-19.
Our travel guidance to people in Aberdeen from today is that you should no longer travel more than 5 miles for leisure or recreational purposes. You may continue to travel for work or education, but we advise against other travel. We're also advising people who are not in Aberdeen not to travel to Aberdeen. Secondly, from today, people in Aberdeen should not go into each other's houses. Extended household groups can continue, but remember these are situations which should only involve one other adult who is living on their own. And finally, we will be introducing regulations, we will publish these later today, requiring all indoor and outdoor hospitality in the city to close by 5 p.m. today.
In the United States, the governor of New York declared a state of emergency on Wednesday in the wake of Tropical Storm Isaias. Governor Andrew Cuomo explained that the state of emergency in New York will provide local governments with additional cleanup and operational support. The counties included in the declaration are Bronx, Dutchess, Kings, Nassau, New York, Orange, Putnam, Queens, Richmond, Rockland, Suffolk, and Westchester. The governor also announced that he has directed the New York National Guard to mobilize 50 soldiers with vehicles to assist Putnam County officials with storm response, cleanup missions, and ice water distribution. As of 7:30 p.m. local time Wednesday, thousands of people in the state remained without power. Cuomo said he will launch an investigation after criticizing utility companies for not adequately planning for the storm. Social media, Facebook and Twitter have taken new measures against President Donald Trump's accounts after he published misinformation about COVID-19. The measures were triggered by a post of a video that shows an interview of the president at Fox News in which Trump stated that children were almost immune to the novel coronavirus. Facebook classified the post as harmful misinformation about COVID-19. Meanwhile, Twitter decided to temporarily ban Trump's campaign's account. Both social media stated that the post represents a violation of its misinformation policies on COVID-19. The measures comes in addition to a series of criticism to President Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. I will be right back after this short break, so don't go away.
Hola, soy Estela Carlotto, presidenta de Abuelas de Plaza de Mayo, y en nombre de la institución que presido y todos los que colaboran con nosotros, quiero manifestar primero que Telesur nació hace 15 años y nos ha brindado y nos siguen brindando toda la información creíble, cierta y necesaria. Los felicito, sigamos juntos, estamos en un momento malo, pero va a venir el bueno y podremos darnos el abrazo tan deseado. Muchas, muchas felicidades.
Welcome back to From the South. In Uruguay, the delegation of workers demonstrated in front of the legislative power to denounce a wave of unjustified layoffs. Members of the Press Association of Uruguay denounced a series of dismissals that are occurring in the companies that own the media. The press union also reported that more than 350 of their workers were sent to unemployment insurance. According to the protesters, the company claims that the economic crisis have made maintaining jobs unsustainable. The trade union workers say that this argument is false and that in context of the pandemic, more than 40 layoffs were made in 50 days without economic reason that extended for the decision.
More than half of those dismissed are union members, and the most notorious case is that of the vice president of the Uruguayan Press Association. This union brings workers together, workers from all media, journalists and technicians. This is the case of a cable TV technician who has been fired. The press denied that it's union repression, but it's curious that those dismissed are a large number of members and of trade union and its vice president.
And demonstrations continue in Chile on Wednesday to show support for Mapuche political prisoners on hunger strike. A group of Mapuche activists took over buildings in the municipality of Tirua in Arauco province, demanding an end to the state violence against indigenous communities and calling for the release of Mapuche political prisoners imprisoned in several jails across the country. The activists entered the municipal facilities early in the morning, while other group of protesters blocked roads. Bolivian de facto President Janine Áñez appointed far-right politician Branko Marinkovic as head of planning and management of foreign aid provided to fight COVID-19 pandemic. The appointment comes in the midst of corruption allegations over the handling of resources to tackle COVID-19 and unconstitutional handling of the debts with bilateral organizations by the de facto government without the approval of Bolivia's Plurinational Assembly. Branco faced charges of treason following successive attempts as well as magnicide during the government of former Bolivian President Evo Morales. He returned to the country in November last year after the coup. Bolivia's Supreme Electoral Tribunal has called on the Bolivian Workers' Center, the country's chief trade union federation, and other social organizations to return to negotiating table in a bid to stop the widespread protests over the postponement of the general elections. The court summoned the Bolivian Workers' Center and 6 affiliated organizations of indigenous and rural workers to a meeting this Wednesday. Meanwhile, the Electoral Tribunal reiterated the elections were moved to October 18th, taking into account the COVID-19 health emergency across the country. The Union Federation announced an indefinite general strike in order to demand the vote be held on the previously agreed date of September 6. And the protests against the postponement of the election until October 18 continue in Bolivia. Protesters took the streets in different parts of the south of the city of Cochabamba while blocking main roads and highways connecting to the west of the country. Bolivia has now seen 3 days of demonstrations and roadblocks, heavily affected traffic and transport. Supporters and opponents of former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe took the streets on Wednesday to voice their opinions following the Supreme Court's decision to place the senator under house arrest.
This is a national celebration. For a long time, we have been waiting for a person like Uribe to be in a process of being arrested.
We hope this is the first step for those investigations to advance, so that former President Álvaro Uribe is responsible and that he pays for the crimes he has committed.
This is an infamy. The FARC narco-terrorists guilty of committing crimes against humanity are in Congress making fun of their victims, and a patriot like Uribe is subject to unjust justice.
The heart and soul hurt when justice does not fulfill its purpose, when justice becomes politicized and justice punishes politics. We only ask for justice for Álvaro Uribe Vélez.
And a spokesman for Colombia's Democratic Center political party announced this Wednesday that former Colombian president and current senator Álvaro Uribe has tested positive for the novel coronavirus.
As spokesman for the Democratic Center in the Senate, we informed the public that President Álvaro Uribe has been diagnosed with COVID-19. However, his state of health is excellent. He has not presented any major symptoms or any breathing difficulties. We wish him a speedy recovery, and from the Democratic Center, we send him a hug of solidarity.
Brazil has now surpassed 97,000 COVID-19 deaths and reported over 2.8 million confirmed cases. According to a report offered this Wednesday by the National Council of Health Secretaries, Brazil registered 322 new fatalities and over 54,500 new cases in the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, officials from the Brazilian Health Ministry are discussing new measures to face the damages caused by the novel coronavirus. Vice President of Communication of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, has given an update on the new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours in the country.
Venezuela reported as of Wednesday the appearance of 848 new community cases in the last 24 hours. Also, 13 imported cases to report a total of 861 cases in the last 24 hours.
Venezuela's Democratic Action and Social Christian parties have announced their participation in December 6 parliamentary elections. The Social Christian Party noted on Tuesday that its candidature will be presented between August 10th and 19th. Meanwhile, the Secretary General of Democratic Action announced the party's decision to contest the election. The Democratic Action Party has condemned calls that encourage abstention or a boycott of the vote, following statements by some other opposition parties. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Sri Lankans attended to the polls on Wednesday to elect a new parliament after being postponed twice due to the coronavirus pandemic. The voting ended at 5 p.m. local time, with the police escorting ballot boxes to the counting centers. The election had a large voting turnout, while citizens had to comply with preventive measures not to create further spread of infections in the country, which infection toll stands at about 3,000. The results, which are to be announced on Friday, August 7, are expected to give a strong support to the president's brothers, as former President Mahinda Rajapaksa is seeking a majority of the 225 seats in parliament to return as prime minister.
That there were no major incidents or violence related to the election. Only we have received some violation of election laws, but police and our officers tackle all these problems.
The African continent this Wednesday saw a further fall in the COVID-19 infection rate. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention registered almost 11,000 new coronavirus cases, noting that there has been a steady decline of between 300 and 400 infections per day over the last 3 weeks. Meanwhile, African authorities are calling on the population to comply with prevention measures to avoid further outbreaks and continue to curb the spread of the virus. Kenyan health authorities reported 671 new COVID-19 cases this Wednesday.
Some 671 people have tested positive from a sample size of 6,200 in the last 24 hours. That means that today, Kenya has 23,873 positive cases. Our cumulative tests now stand at 329,123. 633 of those people are Kenyans, while 38 are foreigners.
And Kenyan health authorities also noted that a total of 723 Kenyan health workers have tested positive for COVID-19 since the outbreak of the pandemic.
As of today, we have 723 healthcare workers, 385 of them who are males and 338 females who have been infected by COVID-19 disease. That is about 3% of the total caseload.
Guinean Prime Minister Ibrahima Kassari Fofana expressed his support this Wednesday for the candidature of current Guinean President Alpha Condé for the presidential elections to be held in October. Prime Minister Fofana appealed to President Condé to contest the election during a two-day convention of the rally of the Guinean People Party. Meanwhile, Condé has asked the party to allow him time to decide whether to run or not. The president is nearing the end of his second five-year term in office. A recent referendum on amendments to Guinean constitution prolonged the presidential term from 5 to 6 years.
C'est le point de départ aujourd'hui.
This is the starting point today for a new, bright and promising future for Guinea and Guineans. We are proud to be the vectors of the new hope for our country and our people.
He is a man of progress, he is a man who's proven himself, and we have seen it. So why not let him work? Why not let him finish the good intentions he has for this country called Guinea, which belongs to all of us?
And marches took place in all major cities of Pakistan on Wednesday in solidarity with the residents of Kashmir on the first anniversary of the stripping of the region's special status by the Indian government. Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan led a rally in the capital of the Pakistan-administered territory of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Muzaffarabad, where over 2,000 people showed up. The Prime Minister described the Indian government as an oppressor and aggressor, while accusing Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi of trying to convert Kashmir's Muslim majority into minority in violation of UN Security Council resolutions and international law. Pakistan and India both claim sovereignty over Kashmir, a territory which has been split since 1946.
Today, Narendra Modi stands exposed before the world, and the world is looking at Kashmir. They, India, thought they will crush Kashmirs with their atrocities, and they will fear of their genocide.
And at least 33 people were injured in the Pakistani city of Karachi as a result of an attack on the rally organized by members of the Jamaat Islamic political party. According to local police, a motorcyclist threw a granada to participants, resulting into explosion. Meanwhile, Pakistani authorities published a new official map early this week, showing all of Kashmir as Pakistani territory. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telestudienglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telestudy English, I'm Laura Palmero. Thank you for watching.